1970, we sure we did the forefront. Knowledge for selfish, for sure we did the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law. We did represent, stand tall anywhere we go. Work hard and we shine, commitment, dedication. Neurosurgery, comedy, music, Nollywood. SOTK, Dr. Call, MC Casino. We did represent, stand tall anywhere we go. Great UNIBEN, great UNIBEN, great UNIBEN.
Hello viewers, welcome to another episode of the UNIBEN Alumni Series. As you know, this is a show where we celebrate alumni of the great University of Benin. We provide a platform where they share their UNIBEN journey, their UNIBEN story. And on today's episode, we have a distinguished alumnus with us today. He is His Imperial Majesty, Fonkem Achankeng. I think I hope I got that correctly. He's a professor, very distinguished professor at that, a professor of conflict analysis and resolution at the University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh. Thank you very much, Prof, for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll start off the conversation, Prof. You are from Cameroon. You are Cameroonian, and how did you find your way to the University of Benin in Nigeria, in South Nigeria, for your first degree?
Great question, and thank you, Mr. Omokaro, for having me again. I come from Cameroon, and my part of Cameroon is the former Southern Cameroon, which was British colonized. And for some time, we were part of Nigeria. As a matter of fact, from 1922 up until 1961, we were part of Nigeria. Okay. So there have been lots of associations with us in Nigeria. And at the time in Cameroon, the only university was the University of Yaoundé, which was more or less a French styled university. And many of the young people of my age at the time who went there kept complaining. And so that is how some of us found ourselves in Nigeria. And it was while in Nigeria, as a matter of fact, one person who had gone to the University of Yaoundé to study chemistry and didn't make it, traveled to Ikoyi to get JAM forms and brought me one. Oh. And that is how I came to Nigeria to study.
So all the way.
But I'm going to tell you something about my admission in Benin.
Okay. Yeah. Prof, go ahead. We want to hear.
Yeah, you'll be very surprised how I came to Benin to answer your question.
Yeah.
Coming from Cameroon, we knew in those days the big universities. We knew Ibadan, we knew ABU, we knew Nsukka, we knew Lagos.
Yeah.
These were the main ones. So I applied through JAM to go to Ibadan. Unfortunately, I didn't read the JAM form well. In those days, admissions in Ibadan in the arts was direct entry. People had to have a College of Education qualifications or HSC.
Yeah.
So I wrote the JAM. So if I read the forms well, I should not have been putting Ibadan as my first choice. So I did put Ibadan as my first choice, and September came, I had no results. October, I had no results. So I took up my pen and wrote to Ibadan, Benin, Ilorin, and I think in Suka at the time. And so I did well in the JAM. I think I did well. I'm surprised I don't have any results. Of course, my letter to Ibadan died naturally. Nobody responded. Ilorin got my JAM number, and then offered me admission in Ilorin directly. Benin wrote to me saying, you are qualified, but please liaise with JAM for your admission. We do not admit. So I got this letter. At the time in Nigeria. I was teaching in ATC Jalingo, which is now the University of Jalingo.
Okay.
And also teaching for the government of Gongola State. I was teaching at GSS Jalingo, Government Secondary School Jalingo. So when I got the letter from Ilorin, I left the job, traveled to Ilorin, and then I think I'll save this story for another day.
No, bro, please, we want to hear.
In any case, when I came to Ilorin as a poor student, I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't have that much money to pay. So I pretended I was Nigerian. So my names, Achankeng Fonkem, were so strange. I went to Ife to see some of my friends, and they asked me to go back and apologize. So I returned to Ilorin and apologized. So Ilorin asked me now to defer my admission.
Okay.
They said I would defer my admission as punishment for 1 year. Now I stood there not knowing what to do. This was already early December.
What year was this, Prof?
1980.
Okay.
1980. This was December already. So I had resigned from my job in Gongola State. I had told everybody I was going to the university. Now I had written for a deferment, and I didn't know what to do. So an idea came to my mind. I said, oh, Benin had written to me saying, liaise with JAM for your admission. We don't admit. So I decided now to go to Benin. So I went to Benin, and thank goodness I found a Professor Tijani Sepos, who was chair of the Department of Foreign Languages. And I told him, oh, I got a letter from you encouraging me to go to JAM for my admission. Now I have an admission letter. Unfortunately, it says Ilorin. So he said, okay, yeah, go to Lagos and get your letter changed. If you get your letter changed by JAM, we'll admit you. So I took my way to Lagos and I arrived in Ikoyi late in the afternoon, like about 3:30, and the admissions officer for the arts in JAM, I think he was called Dr. Nwerem, he asked me why I was not in Ilorin. I lied. I said, before I got to Ilorin, they had matriculated. Little did I know that every university that matriculated, JAM knew. So he said, my friend from the Cameroon, there's nothing I can do for you. And as he left his office in the afternoon, the close of work, so frustrated and disappointed, I had wasted all this time, and all the papers I had in my hands all fell. And the young people who were sitting in the front office took pity on me and asked me the question, are you really from not Nigerian? I said, no, I was not Nigerian. I was from the Cameroons. So they said, do you know anybody here? I said, yes, I do. They said, okay. I said, I know some students at the University of Lagos. They said, okay, if you know where you can stay the night, return here before 7 o'clock and we'll see what to do. So I thanked them, gathered my papers, and left. Went to Lagos, found someone I knew, squatted under his bed for the night, At 4 o'clock, I got up and had a shower and left for Ikoyi, such that by 7, I was in Ikoyi. They asked me to go upstairs to some building to meet the senior assistant deputy registrar or some long title like this, and tell the person my story. So I went there and sat there before she came in. Immediately the lady came in, she was so polite and asked me, can I help? Is there something I can do? So I got up, greeted her, and told her my story. Still standing, she hadn't gone into her own office. She picked up a phone receiver and called the director of admissions in Art and said, well, since Benin has expressed the desire to admit him, issue him a letter covering us meaning JAM. So, so by about 10 o'clock that day, I got a letter from the JAM office.
JAM, yeah.
And these letters were 5 in number. One was addressed to the person in Benin who had sent me, the chair of the department. One was addressed to the JAM representative in Benin, at the University of Benin. Another one was addressed to the University of Ilorin. Another one, there were 5 letters. So I came down with them at about 10:30 and decided to go tell a friend. He was called Maxwell Abuliman. I could never pronounce his name, AVB name kind of name. He had been on a youth corps teaching with me in the north, and he now had a job at the Eganmu by the National Theatre in Lagos. So I was able to walk to his office and tell him that, well, now I have some letters. So he said, oh boy, if we carry some letter in prison, maybe we'll open the letter, see what there is.
Let's see the content of the letter.
Right. So very cleverly, he helped open one of the letters, and the contents were very positive. They said, okay, admit him if you find him acceptable. So we thought it was a good letter. It would not imprison me. And so my friend sealed the envelope again very well. And I left for the bus station to Benin. Thank goodness, this story is long. I don't know if you have it.
It is motivating. It just shows your desire to want to get into school. Yes.
Thank goodness, the University of Benin was transferring that year, 1980, to the new campus in Ogbowo.
Okay, yeah.
And Ogbowo at the time was situated on the highway from Lagos to Benin into Benin City to the east.
On the highway to Lagos.
So I arrived at the gate, the famous UNIBEN gate that you know, came down from the bus, got in, thank goodness again, Nigerian universities being what they are, they had the senior staff quarters on campus. So I went in, walked down to the main auditorium that you do know well, and I saw an arrow point to the staff quarters. So I went to the staff quarters on foot and started asking for this guy. This is like 6:30 in the evening. I started asking for the chair of the, nobody knew him. So I had to go from door to door, to door, to door, to door, until at about 10:30 at night, somebody pointed me to his house. Somebody knew him and pointed me to his house. I went to his house. Only his wife was present. So I said, I'm coming from Lagos and I have some letters for him. His wife said, okay, I know where he is. He's in the senior staff club.
Love.
At the time, he was the president of the senior staff club.
Okay.
So he was there having good time with his colleagues. His wife brought me there, and
the wife took you there.
Yeah, took me there and said, oh, Tish, there's a young man from Lagos who has a message for you. He left an inner room where he was and came out and saw me. And he said, yes, you have to hurry because Wednesday is matriculation. So you are running very late, so you have to hurry. So I said, please, sir, tomorrow is that Wednesday. This was about 10:30 p.m. on Tuesday, 9th of December. The university had started in September. So the
3 months behind.
Yes, so he took pity on me, took all those letters, read his own, and asked me again a similar question to the one I had been asked in Lagos. Do you know anyone here in Benin? I said yes. At the time, I knew a former classmate of mine in secondary school was already in year 4 in UBTH.
Okay.
So I told him I knew someone. So he said, okay, go find a place, something to eat, and then report to my office at 7 in the morning. By God's grace, I found that person. He took me to his room. Oh my goodness. When I got to the room, the air of matriculation was in the was festive. Somebody said they had said in their department that you needed a 3-piece suit. There were matriculation gowns were hanging all around the place. I had no suit. I had nothing. Early in the morning, I was overtaken by the romantic haze, by the matriculation fever, and I was lost. Rather than go to meet this chair of the department at 7 o'clock in the new building on the 3rd floor,
yeah,
of the new building, the new Faculty of Arts building in Ogbowo,
yeah,
I was busy trying to look for nice clothes to wear. I do think this man, who was my savior, drove up in the night, getting to 11 midnight, and made sure that all those letters for the University of Benin were signed. He went to the homes of the representative of JAM and all the big people who needed to sign those papers before he came back home. Early in the morning, he came to the department. I was not. I arrived at about 8:30. When I got there, he was not. Probably he had gone back to have breakfast. Remember, matriculation was that day.
Yeah.
So he returned at about 9 and found me reading the bulletin board in front of the department office. And he cursed. He was a tall gentleman and he was mad, really mad. Said, look at an imbecile. You must be a fool. Who do you think you are? And where do you think you are? I said, go to Ekenwa, go and hire a taxi and go to Ekenwa. And then he poured my papers on the ground, on the floor of the building, and I bent down to pick up my papers thinking he could unleash a kick into my face or something. Now, saying that he left, if I had come earlier, as he had asked me, maybe he might have told me what a Kenwa represented or meant, or what he needed me to do in a Kenwa. Now, first, I don't know what he means by a Kenwa. Secondly, I don't know what you have to do there. So I took the papers, came down, found a bus, got onto the bus for saying a Kenwa. Went to a Kenwa. People were talking religion. By the time I got to a Kenwa, oh my God, the last bus was leaving a Kenwa with the last group of students. This is what I need to tell you. In 1980, when the university left Ekenwa, the temporary, the original campus for Ogbowo, the new campus,
yes,
the admissions office and the registrar they were still in Ekenwa.
Okay.
So he wanted me to go to the admissions office to begin processing my papers, my admission, something that had been done since September, or for those who had already arrived.
Yeah.
So I got there and people laugh at me. People, they go matriculate. See some guy there here.
They come to the office.
Interesting story. So I brought these papers, they saw it, and they started processing them. And then I had a whole big pile of papers like this. I had to go distributing them to the different offices. So I asked, can I have a file folder in which I could put all these papers? Yeah. They said, go see that guy. Oh my goodness. When I went and saw the guy said, looked at my name and Cameroon. And he threw down my papers and said, look, see all these people where they no one make people they win game. So this was happening 2 weeks after Canon Yaoundé had defeated Bendel Insurance.
Whoa,
the African
that was wrong timing for you.
This was just 2 weeks after Canon Yaoundé had beaten Bendel in Benin, and there was a stampede in which 8 people died.
Whoa. So
it was a serious thing. You are a young person, you may not know this. In 1980, Bendel Insurance was the champion club in Nigeria. Yeah. And because they knew or they thought they would win the African Cup, Champions Cup, they bought the rights from the Nigerian Football Federation to play the game in front of their fans in Benin. Instead of Lagos. So they were very sure they were going to win, brought the game there, and they lost to Canon. And that's why there was so much anger at the end of the game. So I went down on my knees and begged and pleaded and said, yes, it is true I'm from Cameroon, but I don't even know this Canon you are talking about. And I had to really beg and beg and beg for the guy to give me a file folder. So I got up, found a bus, got to Ogbowo, long lines. You know what matriculation lines are? Long lines in front of the auditorium.
Yeah.
I have no matriculation gown. I have nothing. So I stood on the line, came all the way to the faculty officer who was doing it, and he looked at me, no gown, nothing. I said, what are you doing here? And just thought I must have been some intruder or some kind of thing.
Yeah.
It drove me away. So an idea came to my mind. I stood nearby and watched one guy sign. And I approached him asking for the matriculation gown so I could wear it too and return to the line. The guy said, well, oh boy, you will come after me, take me pictures in front of all the beautiful buildings.
No problem. No problem.
I went after him, taking camera, taking until he was satisfied. He had all his matriculation pictures, and then he gave me his matriculation gown. I put it on, and the photographer said, "Oh, it looks good on you. Let me just take you one." How much is it? Three naira. I paid the money. Now I don't know the photographer. The photographer doesn't know me.
And you paid in full.
Yeah. So I don't know whether he couldn't find me or whether, but I never ever saw my own matriculation picture. So, but thank goodness, in that year there was something called Polaroid cameras.
Okay.
You are too young to know that.
Definitely.
The Polaroid was a kind of a camera. It was about this big. You took a picture and they could already just pull out.
Okay, yes.
And wave it like this and then give it to you.
Yeah.
That is all I ended up having as my matriculation picture. But that was not even the bad side. I stood on the line again, and then came in front of the faculty officer. What is your name? Michael Achankeng Fonkem. The guy looked at the name from the top of the list to the bottom and back, and of course, my name could not be there.
Yeah.
I had just been admitted that morning, like an hour or 2 or 3 ago, or earlier. So I got so frustrated. Those letters, I had to distribute them myself. And each time I found the head of department, he would ask me the question, have you signed? I said, no. He said, as long as you have not signed, you are not a student of this university. So he rained terror on me. I will go back to Ekenwa. Before I get to Ekenwa, they will say the supplementary list has gone to Ogbowo. By the time I come to Ogbowo, they say it is in the School of Dentistry. By the time I get to dentistry, they say it is in the School of Engineering. By the time I get to engineering, I got so frustrated the first week. I started school on Monday, Wednesday, on Thursday, the following day, from the 11th to the 17th, and that was the end. So everybody closed for Christmas.
Yeah, first semester.
And I had my daughter. In fact, if later I can show you a picture of my matriculation with my daughter.
Oh.
So I had my first child with me. Oh, you can see all that frustration moving around Nigeria like that with a child. So I decided to take the child back at Christmas, and then to get some money from my parents and return to Benin. So that is how you asked me how I found myself in South.
Quite interesting journey.
I couldn't tell you the entire story, but that is
it just showed your perseverance. It showed your quest for knowledge to get into the institution. You did not take no for an answer. Even UNILORE did not come forth and ask you to defer for 1 year. You took the other option, and you went ahead to make it first class, even with this rough starts you had. You've missed lectures. Okay, you missed lectures for about 2 to 3 months already.
Yes.
Yeah, and you still went ahead to make it first class. How was the journey to make it first class?
I think it was all God ordained, because you can't believe that part of the reason I had gotten into trouble in Lauren at the first place was I was afraid of, I didn't know where I would get the money to pay as a foreign student.
Yes.
That was what pushed me into line. Well, as God would have it, I returned to Benin in January, because exams, first semester exams are generally January ending to February. Guess what? At the end of the year, I was the best student of the department and overall best of the university.
Whoa.
And was awarded a university scholarship, a UNIBEN scholarship, for the remaining sessions of my stay at the University of Benin.
Whoa, beautiful.
We were 3 university scholars. There was a certain Raphael Okoje. He came from math, and a certain, I've forgotten his first name, Ogun Sankin, from engineering. And I was from arts. 3 scholars. At the end of the year, it's my stay in UNIBEN is miraculous. Okay. Even though I was that late, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
At the end of year 1, I was best of my department and the overall best of the university.
Oh.
And got a scholarship which covered your tuition and boarding and the cost of accommodation and stationary and stipulated personal allowances.
No.
So my whole stay was covered.
Yeah.
I even bought a Renault 12 and learned to drive.
Oh, you got a car. That's
so
good.
It was, and that's why I returned to Nigeria, I think in 2016 or so, and I went to look for I always come to the university.
Oh.
Each time I appeared in Nigeria for a conference in Ibadan or in a day at Redeemer University or some other university in Jos, I always would come to Benin City. Yeah.
No.
So I traced the gentleman who admitted me, Professor Tijani Serpos. He comes from Porto Novo in Benin.
In Benin Republic. Oh.
I have traced him and spent 2 weeks with him at his home.
No.
Just because I never knew how to say thank you to an angel that got used to bring me admission to the University of Benin.
Yeah, and that also speaks to the fact that the institution was cosmopolitan as at that time, having lecturers from all over the place, from Africa, even from outside Africa.
Yes.
We had lecturers, yes.
In fact, there was a lecturer from Ghana and there was one from Haiti who gave me a lesson. She left. She didn't complete the semester in Benin. She left for Canada. But that lady told me, "You are doing well. Keep up the good record. A good record follows a student all his life." I got that advice from a Haitian professor who wasn't even there. I think she was there only for like a semester and left.
Okay.
Yes.
Sir, still talking about our institution, University of Benin. What do you regard as the greatest assets you took from the institution? Outside you bagged a first-class degree, brilliant. But outside your certification, what asset do you think this is what I took from the institution that you still make do of today, that you still say, I got this from the University of Benin?
I will tell you a few stories. Maybe from 1 or 2 stories, you may get the answer to what you are asking for.
Okay, sir.
The University of Benin at my time was an extraordinary institution. I'm the first class in the history of the Faculty of Arts at UNIBEN. They were very, what is the motto about excellence? They stood for excellence.
Yes.
They stood for that excellence. In fact, when I got the university scholarship, that was not even all.
No, sorry, sir. Knowledge for service. Yeah.
Knowledge for service.
Yes.
I think that is it.
Yeah.
And they went out for that knowledge. And that's why when they found talent, they recognized talent. Many people in the embassy of Cameroon asked me whether, because they wanted me as a graduate assistant, first class people never leave. They hired me. Yeah. And they were willing to pay for my training to a PhD to prepare me for a lectureship position. So when I went to Lagos, I didn't have a passport. The University of Benin did excellently well to cover me. I remember in 1981, when Nigeria and Cameroon almost went to war over Bakassi.
Yeah, Bakassi Peninsula.
Because there was an incident there in which 5 Nigerian soldiers were killed. Professor Elaho, Raymond Elaho, who is still there, told me something. He said, don't venture out to town carelessly. Where the police, you may get into some squabble and the police will ask for your papers, knowing you are a foreign student with a different accent. Only a fatherly professor could say that. to a son. Only the University of Benin could do that for a student of theirs. In my student days, most presidents of the Students' Union were rusticated, and the vice president would complete the year for them. There was a student during student politics who was in pharmacy and distributed acid to be thrown on their opponents.
Oh.
When he graduated, the Senate of the University of Benin decided to withhold his degree for 10 years because that behavior wasn't, didn't market the image of the University of Benin.
Yeah.
So from stories like this, you can see what the University of Benin stood for. There was this famous vice chancellor called Adamu Baeke.
Adamu Baeke, yeah.
He would come around and eat with students in the cafeteria. He would show up when people did not even expect to find him. And one of the things that made me really continue to love UNIBEN, which President Shagari called UNIBEST in 1983 when he came to campus, one of the things I really admired was the air of academia. They brought all kinds of student groups, and the universities would bring in guest speakers for different purposes and on different occasions. And admission into a session like that would be open. If the Mathematics Students Association were getting a guest speaker and you came in, they gave you a Coke and you sat down, you listened to something. I'm trying to say that some of the learning I got to make the first class, that you speak in very glowing terms. This is the way Professor Iguafe, Philip Iguafe, who was my dean, he wrote me my first letter of recommendations and said I can write in very glowing terms about this student who had just graduated. So yeah, what you praise, I got most probably not from the class, but from
the environment,
from other walks of life, from attending lectures on campus, in listening to guest speakers in every discipline or across disciplines. Because in my time, if you just repeated what the lecturers gave you, you got an average. The professors were willing to learn from you, and the professors were humble. When I got the first class and I was being introduced on campus, this is that first class, most professors got up from their seats and said, my son, young man, keep it up. We who are your professors didn't have a first class. Not all intelligent people make a first class.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, there was another Cameroon boy in biochemistry who was very, very sharp, but never made a first class because the program in biochemistry had not been experimented on enough. Even though the guy had good grades, but the university could not give him. I remember somebody asked that, they said somebody in Port Harcourt had a first class, and they said, who are the biochemists in Port Harcourt? So in those days, academics really meant much. Okay, the last story to answer your question. From my enthusiasm in gaining knowledge or in gaining admission, like you heard, when it occurred to me that I was made a first class, I walked myself to the faculty officer's office and said, being the first class and from the Faculty of Arts, would you give me the opportunity to present the valedictory speech on grade. So, do you know what answer I got from him?
No, sir.
The guy was called, I can get his name. He said, my friend from the Cameroons, this university is not interested in triangular students.
What else does he mean by that?
Great question. That was new learning for me. I had never heard the concept of triangular students. He meant that this is a student who leaves the dorm to the CAF and to the class and to the library.
Okay.
I mean, all through my 4 years in UNIBEN, nobody had me in politics, student politics. Nobody heard of me in student sports and games.
Yeah.
Nobody. Everything. I know I represented my department in what they call at the time Nigerian Universities inter-university challenge. It was a contest, but it was still academic.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I was not known in political sense.
Like I was
not known in sports and games. I wasn't known. Only my grades, and in those days, you didn't know who was scoring what because grades were appended on matriculation numbers.
Numbers, no names.
So if you didn't know somebody's matriculation number, you wouldn't know the grade.
Yeah.
And I typically had grades like A, B plus, because we used to take about 7 courses per semester.
Yeah, okay.
I would score A's in all, maybe sometimes a B plus or something. So but then nobody even knew who it was because nobody knew my matriculation number.
Yeah.
Right. So those are the things which make me think very highly of UNIBEN and of Nigerian education at the time. I think I was interviewed in 2002. You can see my transcript, or I can share the transcript with you. And then I said I owe what I am today by Nigerian education at the time, and particularly UNIBEN. So I can never forget the kind of foundation I had at UNIBEN. That is the foundation that has propelled me all through. Yeah, I was interviewed by This Day, a newspaper in Lagos called This Day.
This Day, yeah.
Yeah, I think I can find.
Okay, so I will request for them after the interview. Right. Sir, leading to the next question, you have said some beautiful things about the institution, and you have gone ahead you have schooled in different other institutions globally. Where do you rate University of Benin all of these?
Well, I'll be rating in my time, because now I don't know what I can say because I don't know much. Two things.
Yes. Specifically for you, sir. If you just oppose the education you got from UNIBEN and that you got from other institutions that you attended, where do you place University of Benin among all these?
Yeah, I will come to that. But I must say a few things that have disappointed me.
Yeah.
When I was applying for a PhD in the US, an American university, they needed my transcripts. I wrote to the University of Benin and wrote and wrote and wrote and never got anything. It took me an entire trip to fly back to Benin.
Whoa.
To try to get a copy of my transcript. When I went to the faculty office, the man spent his time dusting some files and talking, and I got no transcripts. Never. Then, as I grow older, I have wanted to start writing my memoir, start writing about my life. And I wanted, when Professor Igwafe wrote my first recommendation, the best I ever had. I returned to Cameroon, and being too young and naive, I was applying for a job and put in the original letter.
Oh.
So I no longer had that letter.
A copy, yeah.
So I wrote for several years, can I have a copy? Because I want to put a copy of this letter in my memoir. I never got it. In 2022, 2023, I came to Nigeria on sabbatical leave, and I was at Babcock. I wrote to the university. I wrote to the dean of the faculty. Please look for a copy of this letter. A letter, an official document could not be issued as a student in June of 1984, and we cannot trace it. To this day, I have never had that letter. So I'm going to say that there are two things to answer your question.
Yes.
My academically, the University of Benin, when I was there, was a top university. I rate them very highly to this day. That was then.
Yeah.
But the administrative part of it, I'm a university professor. As a matter of fact, I became a distinguished professor, like you put it yourself. Last year, I won the John McNaughton Rosebush University Professor Award. That is much higher than most professors. I don't think that a student goes back to their alma mater and can't find a letter that was written for him. It doesn't speak good.
Yeah.
In as much as I can shower praises on the learning I took away from Benin, I think there is something we need to correct,
Yeah.
especially in terms of documentation. History, how do we write history if we don't have the documents?
Proper documentation
to look up? I almost never got a PhD or never got admission into a PhD because I didn't find my undergraduate transcripts till tomorrow. I came back. I wanted a letter of recommendation written for me by a dean of the Faculty of Art. I can't find it. This is not serious.
So that's quite unfortunate, but thank you, Prof, for speaking about it, because if we want our institution to continue to be one of the top institutions in Africa, we must try to correct these things. We need to have proper documentation. And fortunately for us, and thankfully, the new director of alumni relations is a professor from your faculty, Professor Eddie Iragbe.
Who's that?
Eddie Iragbe.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. He finished from the faculty. He went, he schooled in the faculty. He's also a professor in the faculty. He used to be the university orator. So now he's the director of alumni relations. Hopefully,
nice.
We can channel these issues through him, and we hope the institution improves on this aspect. Thank you, Prof, for speaking on that. Sir, going forward, after you left UNIBEN, you went to Cameroon to work as a senior official in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. How did that experience shape your perspectives on conflict resolution and international politics?
Well, the entire universe is a playground where interests collide and collude, and so the human beings continue to face all kinds of problems, and so yes, I've been aware of the kinds of uphill climb that colonialism brought to Africa and continues to play on the lives of Africans. There are many conflicts that are not of our own making. For example, you may have already heard that Cameroon has been at war with British Cameroon for almost 8 years now. Why this conflict? It is because of international relations. The United Nations Charter in Article 76B talks about freedom of people. The 1946 UN Trusteeship Agreement talks about freedom for trusteeship territories. Resolution 1514 of the United Nations General Assembly talks about declaring independence to all colonial countries and people. That is how Nigeria got her independence. That is how Cameroon, French Cameroon, got her independence. When it came to British Cameroon, the same UN, the organization that was formed to make sure there was no war again after World War II, that organization, contrary to her own principles, I just told you of Charter Article 76B, I told you of the UN Trusteeship Agreement of 1946, and I told you of the 1960 UN Resolution 1514 that says grant independence to all colonial countries and people. When it came to British Cameroon, the same UN said, you accede to independence by joining either Nigeria or Cameroon. So what does independence by joining mean to you or to anyone? And you can understand what colonialism has done to us. If you are Mr. Kevin Omokaro, if I respect you as a human being, I'm not going to come and decide what you eat, what you wear, how you sleep, where you sleep, when you get up, how you speak. This is what colonialism did to us, because probably they thought we were less than human beings. Otherwise, I mean, we are in 2025.
Yeah.
Tell me, Mr. Omokaro, what does independence by joining mean logically? And you may understand.
That's not independence again. It's not self-rule or self-governance anymore.
You may understand that Britain and France have been next door neighbors in Europe for millennia. They have never attempted joining because their policies are so diametrically opposed to each other. So why would the world community come to Africa and join a former British colony and a former French colony? Is that not a recipe for war, for conflict, for people to kill each other, as they are doing now? There has been war, even though it's being covered up. There's been war for more than 8 years now, because the people of British Cameroon found out that they were treated unjustly at independence. Their boundaries are well demarcated, known and recognized from World War I. They have been self-governing from World War I. As a matter of fact, British Cameroon would have been the fourth region in Nigeria. It was created before Midwest, before your region, before the Midwest region. And why was British Cameroon even put in Nigeria in the first place? Again, international politics.
Yeah.
When Germany was defeated in World War I, the victor nations, France and Britain, decided to punish Germany. And part of the punishment was to take away their overseas colonies. So, and divide between the two victors. Britain took all of German East Africa. Britain took all of German Southwest Africa, which is today Namibia. So when they got to West Africa, because Cameroon from 1884 was German, but they lost it in First World War in 1914.
Yeah.
So when they got to Cameroon, they split it in two. France got the bigger part.
Then Britain got
the smaller part, because Britain had gotten all of German East Africa and all of German Southwest Africa.
Yeah.
Togo was also German. They split it in two. There was French Togoland and British Togoland, just like there was French Cameroon and British Cameroon. Now, rather than Britain administering British Cameroons on its own, they appended British Cameroons to Nigeria.
To Nigeria, yeah. And obviously for administrative convenience for them.
Whose convenience? The convenience of the natives or the convenience of the colonial master?
Of the colonial masters, obviously.
That's what I'm saying. Whose convenience? Yeah. Now, they did not just append British Cameroons to Nigeria. They further balkanized the two. They cut it into British Northern Cameroons, British Southern Cameroons. So much so that during the interwar years, the people of the two territories almost completely lost touch of the fact that they were brothers, they were the same people. Now, independence comes, and the UN provides something they call the plebiscite. British Northern Cameroons, which has almost the same attributes with the rest of Northern Nigeria,
yeah,
and with the influence of the Sardauna of Sokoto, voted to be Nigerian. The people of British Southern Cameroons, owing to the hegemonic rule of the Igbos, didn't want to be in Nigeria because of the Igbos who took everything from them. And that's why they voted to go to be with Cameroon. But the justice is that that was not right. In terms of history, in terms of law,
yeah,
people cannot be self-governing. From 1954, democratically, peacefully changing governments and administrations, and independence come, they are all waiting for independence, and you now tell them you get independence by joining. Just because they said, oh, these people must be subhuman, so we can put them wherever we want. So the war, I'm putting all this to say the war was caused for the people by the world community, international relations that you were talking about.
That's aptly put forth. We are gradually winding up because it's 1 hour already, and I know you have a lot more to say. But lastly, you are a traditional ruler, you are an academic, you are every other thing in between. Are you able to manage these several responsibilities?
Again, I will give the glory to God. I started with this in UNIBEN and what happened to me in 1980. I will close by giving the glory only to God who makes it possible. I didn't, traditional rulers don't leave. When I was working for the foreign ministry, when I ascended to the throne,
yeah,
and left the foreign ministry and went home to be with my people. In those days, many people were looking for avenues abroad. I'm sure that's why you are there, to send their children to study abroad. God Almighty gave me such an opportunity on a platter of gold. When I left work, official work, and went home to be king of my people, my wife won the diversity immigrant lottery in America. So we thought, yes, it is taboo for a ruler to leave, but we have been looking for this opportunity to bring these kids out. So, well, I had come to the US as a Fulbright scholar in 1995 when I was still at work.
Yeah.
And my wife had studied in Canada and had spent a holiday in Chicago. I came to the US and went to study world leadership. Oh, the pictures are in my office at the Hubert Humphrey Institute for International Affairs. So I had spent time in the Midwest. So when we got the opportunity, we said, well, let us bring the kids here for a short period. When they find their feet, we'll go back.
Okay, yeah.
We came here temporarily. It was now when we got here that the reality of living in the US dawned on us. And so we had to look for something to do in order to put some food on the table, in order to pay. You know, education is not free in the United States.
Yeah.
In order to pay for the students, for those kids. And that's how I got here last week of August. On the 1st of September, I started teaching university. I've been teaching university here since I got here.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say is that in my kingdom, the king is not crowned alone. He is crowned with a governing council.
Okay.
What has helped has been social media and the phone, because you can talk and see people. Communication has become so easy, like we are doing.
Yeah.
But back home, traditional society wasn't meant. The making of our tradition. As a matter of fact, I went to Benin, I don't know what year, to attend a conference on African monarchies. The African tradition, everybody in Benin lived in Benin. That's how it was. So our forefathers didn't know that there was America or there was Britain where people could go. So when the king was crowned, he was crowned with other people who lived just around. So even in his administration, he didn't do it alone. This is what I'm trying to say. So in my own culture, those people are still in place, watching over the day-to-day affairs. But there is no way I cannot not be. I have to be. We are like Benin. That rulership comes from father to son.
Okay.
But unlike Benin, it's not the first son.
Okay.
In Benin, it's first son succession.
Yes.
In our culture, is any son, particularly a son born when the king is on the throne.
Oh, okay.
Yes, generally it is. We will call that tiger skin kids. Otherwise, it can be any son. So when the king starts growing old, he starts studying his children to see who of them may render selfless service, may keep the family together, may keep the group together, may keep the kingdom together, and those kinds of attributes. So I'm pointing this out to say that no, it's not. I'm not alone on the throne. There are other assistants.
Okay.
They are assistants with whom who form the reigning council. Even though I take the last decisions, I generally am not the first, but like you talked about conflict. There's a book currently being written by me. Oh, sorry, being written on me.
Okay.
Because when I was at Babcock, it coincided with the 25th anniversary of my coronation. So that was celebrated. Oh, maybe when you have time, I will show you a copy of a copy of the book. Yes, I have a copy. It was celebrated, and then where was I coming? And on that occasion, the theme of the celebration was traditional institutions and peace building in Africa. So the Faculty of Political Science at Babcock are putting together a volume of an edited volume on African traditional institutions and peace and conflict issues. Yeah, I think that's what I was planning to say.
Yeah.
Oh, and did anyone tell you that I got an award from the University of Benin?
Oh no, I didn't get that information.
Unfortunately, I can send it to you.
Yes.
I received the Distinguished Alumnus Award.
It's deserving of you,
yes.
Of course. Thank you so much, Prof, for this 1 hour plus has been beautiful. I've enjoyed every moment with you, and I know our viewers will enjoy it too. Thank you, Prof, for telling your story. Thank you for motivating not just the students, even young alumni like myself. We are motivated to know that people like you walk through that path, walk through the institution. Thank you very much, Prof.
You're very welcome. As a matter of fact, you just used the title of my memoir is The Path I Trod.
Oh.
Yeah. that's the title of my memoir. The Path I Trod.
Hopefully when it's out, we'll get
oh, no doubt about that, Mr. Mokara. No doubt about that.
Thank you very much, Prof.
I still want to return to the University of Benin in some capacity.
Okay.
I don't know. Are you still recording? Please, can you get out of the recording? So
okay. Yes. Thank you, viewers. I've been speaking with His Imperial Majesty, Fonkem Achankeng I. He's a professor of conflict analysis and resolution. We have had a wonderful time. Continue to subscribe to our channel while bringing more exclusive interviews. Thanks.
1970, we sure we did the forefront. Knowledge for self-peace, for sure we did the work. Auditorium to basement of all faculty of law.